Hey, we can climb the bus right here. Okay, we need to lighten the mood. Ready? It doesn't matter how much you push the envelope, it'll still be stationary.
What is that?
It's a joke book. No pun intended. Volume 2 by Will Livingston.
Let's keep going.
What did the Confederate soldiers use to eat off of? Silverware.
Uh-huh.
What did they use to drink with? Cups. Dixie cups. I walked into my sister's room and tripped on a bra. It was a booby trap. A book just fell on my head. I only have myself to blame. Or wait, I said it wrong. Hold on, let me read it again. A book just fell on my head. I only have my shelf to blame. I ruined it. What is the leading cause of divorce in long-term marriages? A stalemate.
That's awful.
You're awful.
Do you even understand what that means?
Nope. Doesn't matter. Alright, I'm done. For now.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Crastinators podcast. I'm your host, the best guy ever, Bestie Boy, here again with all the coolest guys. We've got patreon.com/Ben Saint.
That's me.
The Devu Collective.
Smirk. Buy this movie. Smirk.
Jeff of the Mother's Basement.
Hi, hello. This is me again.
And the Rebel Pixel himself, Tom Oliver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So, guys,
good job,
when
everyone.
are we,
Good way
who
to
do I
introduce
have
that.
to
That
fuck
was-
around
you know what?
here to get started on this podcast? I've been waiting for
You know
all
what?
this time.
Nate,
Let's get
what's
this
that,
thing
Jeff?
you know what that
going
was?
already.
What?
That was some good witty dialogue right there. What we had going right there.
Dude.
Yeah, I suppose.
Well, I've seen better wit on Tuesday. Now, let's begin this
Witty
conversation.
banter. What you say? Witty. What's what now? I'm comedically pretending not to understand the phrase.
Oh
Okay,
my gosh.
all right. I don't understand what anyone's saying right now, but the point is, the
You
topic of the
never do,
podcast
Nate.
is
You never
is witty.
understand.
All right. The topic of the podcast is witty banter, and we've all got feelings about it. But really, I think we need to take a good long time to describe exactly what each of us
shall we
is
open
thinking
up
of.
Urban Dictionary and look up witty banter?
Witty
if they have
banter is
something
what the
like that.
lowlifes do over in flyover country when they're not busy picking corn.
Well, okay, I looked it up on Urban Dictionary, and here's what we've got. Conversing in a quick and intelligent manner. Requirement for funny, attractive man. Even if they are ugly, all right. Even if they are ugly, the witty banter will redeem their unfortunate looks.
Wow.
And here's the
that's-
quote.
So
Here's
that
the
was
quote.
written
Jake,
by
all right,
a
listen
fat
to my example here.
15-year-old.
This is a real life usage
Okay.
from the Gilmore Girls. All right,
Oh my
Jake had
God.
the best. Yeah, Jake had the best witty banter yesterday. I know it totally made me want to bone him.
This
from the
okay.
Gilmore Girls.
I mean,
no,
you
this
know,
is a
that's-
great-
Urban Dictionary.
This is a great jumping off point because whoever
Yeah.
wrote that
Yeah.
is totally under the persuasion that if someone can snap off like a real quick, witty one-liner, if someone can like snap off some real cutting jape or jab or jib or whatever, what have you, then that's cool. And they're a cool guy, and it's funny. And if you can write someone whipping off like one-liners and zinging people off, snap, ice burn, then that's good writing. And I don't think so. I think that is an overused thing in fiction and in writing in general, and that it's a crutch that a lot of people use, and I don't like it. I mean, I'm sure there's times when it's appropriate, but most of them are not.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? The scene that comes to my mind most of all when I think about this is, and maybe it's a bad example, but the scene in Metal Gear Solid 4.
By the way,
where,
I'm Ben Saint. Saint
That's
Christ.
right.
Patreon.com/Ben Saint.
Did I mention?
If you enjoyed this kind of witty commentary, you can head over to patreon.com.
The couple sentences I just said, please consider supporting me. Anyway.
All right, but what I was saying was that you know that scene in Metal Gear Solid 4 when Poop Man and Meryl are like fighting for their lives at the end of the game, and they're talking about like their wedding that's coming up. Well, they're getting murdered by everyone around them all the time. It was really uncomfortable. Like and this seems to happen a lot with this stuff, where like something really serious is going on. And I don't know if they think that they can, like, inject some levity into it, when, like, meanwhile, like, Snake is, like, crawling to his death over here. He's being fucking cooked alive by microwaves. Well, these two are like, oh, we're gonna get such pretty dresses. Boom, killed another guy. Oh, we're gonna have all the flowers. It's gonna be awesome. Boom, killed 5 more people. Got shot in the arm. It's, you know, it's not something you can just slap on top of something to just, like, enhance what's going on.
In Metal Gear Solid, that is kind of, to an extent, the point. Because Metal Gear Solid is, you know, I mean, it's part Hideo Kojima's crazy fucking fever dream fantasy about what's really going on in the world and all the
context is always important.
Conspiracies. But the other thing that it is it's a send up of action movies, right? Like,
sure,
yeah. So that's something that they do in action movies all the time, and it's not necessarily about, like, you know, being respectful in the moment. It's about being entertaining to the viewer. And
the idea is to portray coolness that makes people really impressed. Like, these people are so
talking
about what's going on.
In an action movie...
Devu, shut up. He's trying to say something.
In an action movie, you guys got to turn my volume on Discord back up.
I was done talking for like 5 seconds when everyone told me to shut up, the stupid lag.
Yeah. Okay,
right, sorry,
so the thing is, in an action movie, violence isn't like a bad thing. Violence is performance art. So in that sense, you know, throwing wit on top of that and trying to make it as funny and entertaining for the audience as possible is in service of the goal of the scene. So, like, when Arnold Schwarzenegger fucking freezes somebody to death in Batman and Robin, and he's just like, what killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. I mean, that's a terrible example, but that is.
I disagree.
I mean, that's a great example. But
I actually think that's hilarious. But what I'm saying, like, the things happening in that scene in Metal Gear Solid 4 are in the same sort of situation as, like, Episode 1 of Star Wars, where like there's this big battle where all these different scenes are happening simultaneously, and one of them is like this witty banter while they're fucking fighting for their lives.
And
well, meanwhile over here, Snake is fucking dying.
That's done for the sake of juxtaposition.
Yeah,
right?
here's I have not played Metal Gear Solid 4, so disclaimer about that. But it sounds to me like what the scene is trying to do, like, one, it's trying to be goofy and funny in that they can have this conversation while they're fighting for their lives, ostensibly.
Okay.
Also, I think the other thing maybe it's going for is that these two are, like, such good and powerful super soldiers that they can have this kind of conversation while, like, run-of-the-mill mooks are gunning them down. Is that maybe part of it?
Yeah, it's all about whether or not it makes
you know,
sense
I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and say that's what they were going for.
Like, it doesn't even take their full concentration to engage in this firefight.
Yeah, and
this is like the ultimate battle of their lives. Okay, but you know what? Whatever. I'll give that to you. Right.
And
fair enough.
That's meant to be the comedic side of it, right? Like that's a common thing in film, to juxtapose something that's goofy and lighthearted with the most serious moment of the film in order to elicit, like, in order to take people on, like, an emotional roller coaster and keep them engaged. Like, I don't know if you've seen the movie Cloud Atlas, but Cloud Atlas is effectively 5 different shorter movies, each with vastly different tones and subject matters. And one of them is basically like a British slapstick comedy, and and it's got, like, this really goofy chase scene where, like, a bunch of old people are running away from from like a home. And that's juxtaposed with this super dramatic scene where these 2 slaves are trying to escape from being captured and trying to find freedom. These, like, clone slaves. It's a weird movie.
I think I saw it.
And there's, like, a few other things, and, like, that's the purpose of that is to compare and contrast and make the funnier parts of that funny, make the funnier, and make the dramatic parts of the other scenes more dramatic in comparison.
I'll give you all of that, and I'll say that is totally something that you can do effectively, but you have to admit that there is a right way and a wrong way to do those things. And my only contention is that, in my humble opinion, I think Metal Gear Solid 4 did it the wrong way for that one scene. That's all I'm saying.
I mean,
Let me
Kojima's
give-
not a very good film director. Like,
He's a terrible writer, and he's not a great director. I don't know.
Let me talk about a good writer and someone who used witty banter in a way that I like a lot. George R.R. Martin in Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
I mean, in Game of Thrones, not every character engages in witty banter, right?
True.
Like Ned never. I think at some point Ned even thinks to himself, like, "Man, I can't do this. This sparring with words that everyone does here in King's Landing.
yeah.
It sucks, and
Yeah.
I can't do it, and I hate it. Let's just get on with what we're doing here." Like Tyrion is this kind of snarky guy who doesn't have any respect for anyone and just sort of will flippantly say what he thinks all the time. And people like Varys and Littlefinger are these kind of like crafty dudes who like engage in all these, court politics and stuff, and they're always like trying to advance their station with like a well-placed word and a whisper and whatever. So like those kind of characters do have this sort of witty banter, but then other characters like Brienne is like dumb as a stump and could never in the books anyway.
Hey, that's misogynist.
No, in the book she's so dumb, and she's also my favorite character.
She's not that dumb. I don't remember that.
Well, to me, she comes off as pretty dumb in the books, but in a
doesn't
cool way.
Doesn't George R.R. Martin say at some point that she's supposed to be really dumb or something?
I don't know. I know he called Victarion dumb as a stump.
Oh, right, that's what it was. Okay.
But anyway,
Yeah,
like
it's
she
all
would
about-
never engage in that. The Starks generally wouldn't. Things like that.
See, it's
Even
all
So
about
what do you
the-
get at? Did you like the way Tyrion did it?
I'm just saying that it's appropriate in some contexts, but not all of them. And in that,
I think
Right.
and
like,
in that
it's-
series, the
Context,
characters are
man.
Ben, maybe like if I can
Tom,
springboard
yeah.
off that, I think what you're trying to say is that like witty dialogue and like witty banter is a character trait and not a writing crutch. Because there are a lot of
Yes.
there's so many times
There we
Yes.
go.
where you can have a witty character, but like something that as much as I like the MCU and shit, everybody has witty banter. It's not a character trait anymore because like every character in
That's
those
exact-
movies fucking
Right.
snaps
And if you want to
one-liners.
have,
That's exactly the issue that I was trying to raise with this topic. That is what I'm complaining about. It's when
Right.
Yeah,
every
when you
character,
have a
regardless
story-
of their
When
other
a-
personality traits, are witty and cool, and they do snarky things like that.
when a writer basically conflates a character being clever with the actual script being clever.
Yes, when
yeah.
a
that-
writer
all-
tries to show how smart they are by giving the character smart dialogue, even if
and
that's not appropriate.
so like one of the interesting things about the MCU, because I think overall that the MCU is well
By the way,
written.
I have not seen very much of the MCU, but
Yeah, that's
What's the MCU?
Like I would say
the
say
Marvel
Cinematic
Comics
Universe.
universe.
Marvel
Oh.
Cinematic
Cinematic.
Universe. So yeah, so like I
Oh.
would say that the MCU does run into that problem with certain writers. Joss Whedon.
Yeah, he's the one. He's the guy.
Yeah.
Oh
so
my God,
do you
Jeff,
need a-
no,
do you
that
need a
is such a
lozenge, Jeff?
stereotypical
No,
way
I
to
got-
I got
do
some
it.
water
Just a
here,
cough,
but,
saying something, cough, saying something, cough. Very
Yeah.
cliche dialogue.
Hey,
Jeff.
that's
I'm
witty
disappointed
dialogue.
in you.
That's pretty witty, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, Joss Whedon does that a lot. Sometimes it works, like in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, when you've got
Yeah.
a bunch of high school kids trying to like prove something. Yeah, it makes sense for those kids to be engaging in that kind of banter. In Firefly, where the tone is cowboys, it kind of makes sense. In Cabin in the Woods, it kind of makes sense. But like, it gets exhausting when every superhero is trying to one up each other, including Bruce Banner, who's like by his very character a man of few words. And I mean, like Iron Man is the only character in that who should be really doing that all the
Yeah.
time. Black Widow's like she's an
the
assassin.
Yeah, and like the
She's
problem
supposed
with
to be
that was
tactful.
as soon as Avengers like blew up, everyone started writing all the characters like that.
And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate, but I mean, in the main movies, like in the, or not the main movies, I guess the side movies where each character gets their own thing, the writing's a lot better because they're allowed to actually breathe and tell a story as opposed to just, here's a bunch of people, we want them to bounce off the walls and get people to give us an 8 out of 10 on IMDb or whatever, because that's
All you need, and you're in the clear at that point.
It's like it gets really interesting with Captain America: Civil War, because they do break away from that at some points, and Spider-Man, who is a character who a lot of people define by his witty dialogue, ends up being one of the most interesting characters in that movie because of how he's written. Like, he's clearly trying to be witty, but he's using it as a defense mechanism, and he's, like, pissing his pants scared, and you can tell that from how he's written.
Which I've heard people
whereas,
say
like,
that they've interpreted that's how Spider-Man has always been. Like, that's why he does that's why he has all that witty dialogue.
That is how Spider-Man has always been, and that's why Andrew Garfield. And that's why Andrew Garfield's fucking terrible, and the Amazing Spider-Man series can go fucking die in a fire. Witty dialogue ruined that too. In addition to fucking Mark Webb not knowing how to direct anything other than a music video.
Mark Webb.
Yeah,
Mark Webb
that's who they brought on to direct Spider-Man.
It makes sense, dude. It makes sense.
That seems like a corporate decision to me. 10 out of 10 on that one.
That seems like a corporate business meeting where they were trying to have witty dialogue. Like, somebody's like,
yeah, you know, like Jeff was alluding
really?
to, you know, if
the
you
corporate
have a
decisions
show
are falling
where,
victim to witty dialogue themselves. Holy
if
shit.
you want to have a
Let
show
the
where
talk,
all of the,
Nate.
yeah, I have to really get a head start with all this lag. Man, so much lag around here. It's worse than Sarah Palin. So, you know.
Did he just say that?
If you want to have a show,
and we hear him cut out as everybody laughs, like 8 minutes later.
If you want to have a show where like everyone is like talking inappropriately with inappropriate levels of levity when they're all doing death-defying stunts, you know, it's all about whether or not it makes sense for the characters. Cowboy Bebop's a good example because all the main characters in that show are all really bad at talking about their problems and how they feel, and they don't like talking about themselves or anything seriously. It's
true.
And I think, you know, I think it's always been suggested that it's because they all have the same kind of personality in that regard. That's kind of what makes them naturally team up in the first place, and the fact that they all smoke. You see, there's these natural causes for the witty dialogue to happen, and it's part of the story, and that's what wit is all about. We say witty. Witty means smart, intelligent, creative, but at some point, some witty, intelligent, creative person invented dialogue where all the characters were taking a bunch of rhetorical jabs at one another back and forth, and everyone associated that with witty, and then proceeded to copy it in a way that wasn't witty at all. It's like if you ever listen to there was Rotten Tomatoes had a show. They had like a web show where they would like play a bunch of people trying to do the stereotypical film critic type of reviews for a movie in a montage, and it was all a bunch of witty dialogue like, these two people didn't have very good performances. It was about as good as a deflated balloon. And it wasn't very witty at all.
That's cool.
So what you're saying is witty dialogue, as it stands today, is not very witty.
Yeah.
Sounds like you say that the definition has morphed a bit. And what we perceive now is not... I mean, I suppose I suppose I'd like to think that the origin for all these was because it was in keeping with the way that we wanted the characters to be portrayed. But perhaps now, you know, like with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's more about... I was going to kind of say this before, like, maybe audiences just like everyone to be doing that shit. Or they've come to associate that with, like, smart dialogue and good characters, you know?
I think the definition now... the definition now, I think, is the characters themselves thinking of themselves as witty. I think that's the new definition.
I think it might come back to that definition that you read to us, the Urban Dictionary thing.
About men who need to get laid even though they're ugly. Using
like I mean like to an extent that definitely works. Look at Casey Neistat. He's married. But that came across as mean. He's a very intelligent person. What I'm trying
it's okay. People are ugly. It's all right.
What I'm trying to get across though is like I think maybe a lot of screenwriters and a lot of Hollywood people are just trying to create characters that people online will say they want to fuck. You know, like look at the Avengers. Like everyone's like, oh, I want to fuck Chris Hemsworth. Oh, I want to fuck Loki. Oh, I want to fuck Captain America. I want to fuck Robert Downey Jr. Like they want to fuck all those characters.
All right, guys, you have your Jeff
characters are
soundboard.
witty.
Get working.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Right.
Oh no! Now everyone's gonna know everyone I want to fuck. Like they didn't before by watching my live streams at youtube.com/mothersbasementreviews. But no, the like I don't know. That's kind of a facetious thing, but I think it's true for certain writers, like the person Digi asked us to bring up, Diablo Cody.
Yeah.
Like Jesus fucking Christ, Diablo Cody can't write a scene where somebody doesn't have a quip about something. And to like when she's working with other people's characters and she's working within like other script constraints, like when she did the script revisions for The Evil Dead, like the remake, which is one of the only good remakes. I think we brought this up on our remakes podcast.
We did.
And when she was like a guest writer for Children's Hospital, which great show. If you guys haven't seen
cool.
Children's Hospital, that's good. But when she writes her own scripts, when she writes shit like fucking Jennifer's Body, or Juno, like it's insufferable. It can be absolutely insufferable to hear all these, like, again, with teenagers it kind of works, but
I was going to say that the thing that I do like about it with Juno is that you really, at least when I watched that movie, I got the feeling that these people were really trying to act super cool, and they totally aren't. And, like, Ellen Page is totally that kind of person in that movie. She is not cool at all, but she's really trying to act that way. And I remember till the day I die, at the very beginning, when she does the pregnancy test, walks up to the what's-his-face from The Office is up there, and he's just like, your ego is prego. That's the greatest line I've ever heard in any movie ever.
It is pretty good. The problem for me with Juno is that I watched Jennifer's Body after watching Juno, and that throws in, like, that movie is so bad that it throws into question her ability to write and will make you think, like, was Juno really that good?
That's fair. That's fair.
Did she just bamboozle us by getting lucky? God.
Like, the script would have been the same no matter who the characters were, but it happens to work because they're teenagers or something. Yeah.
Another person who has this problem is Aaron Sorkin, who's the writer of, The West Wing, The Newsroom, Social Network, a bunch of other, like, I would consider him to be a great writer, but a lot of people are put off by the fact that all of his characters are basically always trying to say the wittiest thing in any given situation, and a lot of them are just mouthpieces for his political views. Like, but if you've watched The West Wing, if you've watched The Newsroom, the dude writes a stirring speech. The dude can make a scene just, like, move you, but to an extent, I think that his desire to impress you with, this pun that these characters came up with on the fly based on a situation that I wrote, which doesn't make it impressive at all.
Yeah.
Like, trying to impress you with that wit can take away from how good his characters actually are, because they're well defined and they've got a lot of depth to them. But, like, in the moment to moment thing, they come across as being a little, this shit again, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting, and I kind of want to raise a distinction based on what Devu was saying before, and what everybody's been saying. That's like the new type of witty banter where the characters think they're really clever versus actually clever dialogue between characters. So, like, I'm thinking of Quentin Tarantino is the guy that comes to mind for me, with like in Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, but like the Reservoir Dogs tipping scene at the very beginning of the movie.
Just recently watched that first scene. That whole first scene is brilliant.
That is like
done.
my favorite movie of all time.
To sound like natural dialogue,
beautiful.
but condensed
and what makes
just
that witty?
To make it perfect.
Right.
Yeah, it's witty. I mean,
what
the guy
makes that
writing
so witty?
is witty, and the characters themselves are also witty. Everyone is witty. The writer
right.
and the characters.
That's what I'm saying, because the thing is, in the scene, he's making an actually fairly persuasive argument as to why tipping is bullshit and you shouldn't do it. I mean, obviously, not everyone's going to agree. This is this character's interpretation of what tipping is, which obviously comes from, some element down in Tarantino that he's had this thought that tipping is kind of retarded, and it's being expressed with these characters, and they're all relating to it in a reasonable way, and it's totally good. And my favorite thing about that scene is that Mr. Orange is like, you know what, I'm convinced. Give me my dollar back. I'm not tipping anymore. Like, he convinces another character using this real-life argument, and that's real wit. And I'm a little bit convinced by that, too. That's a real witty scene that I love.
I already had that guy's position. I mean, I do tip, but I totally agreed with his philosophy going into it, even. Yeah, man. The way that, like, characters will walk into the scene later on, and like, they have to... Because there's a part where, like, the older guy comes back into the scene later on, and they have to, like, repeat some of the information.
What do you mean you don't tip?
Yeah, but it's done in just such a way to where it's even more funny to hear it all over again. It's great stuff.
I feel like Tarantino, his dialogue has wit to it, but that's because he makes every scene like about something as opposed to just being about two characters bouncing off of each other.
You know, another great example of this is that scene in, I forget the movie. He wrote like one scene for this movie. God, I can't remember the name. But basically there's this speech where what's his name? Christopher Walken is he's like a mob boss, and he's you know the one I'm talking about, where he calls him an eggplant, and he explains to this guy who's like a Sicilian mobster that like Sicilian women were raped by like the Moors, who were black, who took over Sicily for a time, and that's why Sicilians now have dark hair. And he's just like, what I'm saying is you're a nigger. Like, he's just like, he builds up to this like slandering like his bloodline and shit, but it's so funny. And like this whole speech goes on a huge tangent about like the history of Sicily, and like all that's happening is that he's telling this guy to fuck off and that he's not going to do what he wants. But it's hilarious the way that he does that through this big story that's historically accurate.
That kind of reminds me of that scene in Hateful Eight where Samuel L. Jackson tells that long story about horribly torturing and murdering this kid, and it cuts out of it with him being like, "Yep, he had my big black dingus in his mouth."
Great.
That was a fantastic
It was quite a
movie
scene.
and
I
a fantastic
had mixed
scene.
feelings.
I
don't know if I'd call it fantastic. It had its perks, I guess.
I quite enjoy. I enjoy all of Tarantino's movies except for Death Proof because
I haven't seen that one.
That's his half of Grindhouse, and it's not great.
Okay.
Planet Terror is a lot better. I think Robert Rodriguez is just a lot better at doing schlock. But anyway, like you look at pretty much any dialogue exchange in any of his films, and there's like something going on that's like building up the characters, and their wit always relates to who they are as a person, right? And he frequently plays witty characters off against dumber characters who are also morally more in the right than them. You know, like if you look at, say, Inglourious Bastards, fantastic movie. The first scene of that movie is one of the greatest opening scenes in any movie ever, and just that conversation between Christoph Waltz and the farmer. Where he's saying all of this witty shit, and like the farmer's just sort of being meek because of the position that he's in, and also, he's not this like he's not hyper educated, but at the same time you're relating more to the farmer's position, and it's less like, oh, look how clever this character is, although he is being clever. It's more like, look at this asshole, right? Look at how clever this guy wants us to think he is.
Like, he's got so much power
smart,
over this guy, intellectually, politically. He's got every advantage over the guy. So you kind of feel like, damn, this guy's the coolest. I want to be with this guy.
That's the reversal of the usual of the trap that I think too witty banter can fall into. Wherein, have you guys seen that it's a comic, but it's like a parody of like social issue comics where like
I'm sure I have.
There's two characters talking, and one guy, he's kind of the smart nerd looking guy, and the other is this sort of crudely drawn like big yelly guy. And the little glasses guy is like, I have this opinion, and the other's like, I disagree and I hate you. And it's like, and then the glasses guy's like, I keep my cool and am the bigger man, and the other guy's like, not me, I'm so fucking crazy. No, the first panel is the smart guy being like, I have this opinion which I share with the author of this comic. And the other guy's like, I have this alternate opinion that is contrary.
Right. So they're basically just like completely straw manning the other guy, the other arguments, and you see that all the time.
Yeah,
You see that all the time in webcomics
you know,
and stuff.
you make a character that
fucking
that is
Tumblr.
arguing.
That's all of Tumblr, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You make a character that you agree with and that you want the audience to agree with, and then you have him like try to look cool and be cool and like, you know, get one over on the enemy and say something that really cuts him deep that the other guy obviously has no rebuttal for.
You know what the
because,
perfect example
the author
of this
didn't
is?
think of what a reasonable rebuttal
Are you
might be.
thinking of Brian Griffin from Family Guy? Because he's exactly that character.
But I mean, Brian Griffin is supposed to be full of shit because he's the stand-in for Seth MacFarlane, and
yeah.
like everybody who writes like that show uses Brian to make fun of what an asshole Seth MacFarlane is. Like the
that's so
sometimes.
brilliant.
the
I never
episode
thought of it that way. Ha ha ha.
The episode where Brian tries to be a stand-up comedian, for instance, is all about how shitty a stand-up comedian Seth MacFarlane is. Anytime that Brian expresses a political opinion like an asshole, that's Seth MacFarlane.
Right, that's true.
But yeah, the thing that those Tumblr comics remind me of is fucking the Mac versus PC ads and how those made me want to buy a PC.
Oh, yeah.
Because fuck Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always liked the PC guy better anyway.
Yeah.
Fuck that hipster asshole Mac guy.
Exactly. He's like this
Are you
down
guys
to earth.
familiar with the response ads that Microsoft did, where it was just they just
I
had,
don't know, maybe.
they just showed a bunch of people who own PCs going off being cool people living their real lives that don't have anything to do with computers. And I'm like, bravo, Microsoft, good job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember people
Good
hated
one.
those commercials too, like the tech sphere, because
Yeah.
I go on tech blogs all the time, and everyone's like, these commercials are so cool, and then like the PC ones came out, which were so much more like subtle and clever in response, and everyone's like, these are gay, they don't even show the computer.
Subtle and clever.
Yeah, I mean,
Words
it's all
that
about
not
whether or
only
not
should
you're
apply to
being
witty banter,
snarky.
but
It's all
also
about
PC
snarkiness.
users.
You know, meanwhile, Microsoft did earlier on have
You know what?
an
That's
ad
a good
campaign
point.
that was very
Witty banter's
snarky. It
become
was during
snarky
the,
banter.
Right.
Yeah.
Because Microsoft also had an ad campaign that was very snarky from earlier on during the height, or no, I guess down the peak of all the hatred delivered at Vista before Windows 7 came out. I guess Microsoft wanted to come out with a campaign to convince people that Vista didn't suck that much. And from what I've heard from tech people, I heard it was mostly like a hardware issue on the part of Gateway and Walmart, but I don't know. But Microsoft had these ads where they had real-life non-actors come in to try out the new secretly fake Windows operating system known as Windows Mojave, and they interviewed people asking them what they thought of Vista, and everyone said, "Oh, Vista sucks. Well, I'm a normal dumb person. I think Vista sucks." Okay, now let's try Windows Mojave, and then they tried it and like, this is great. I used it for 5 minutes, and I think it's really great. I'm an unpaid non-actor person, real life guy. How much do you like Windows Mojave? I love it. Well, guess what? Windows Mojave is Windows Vista with a different name on top. Oh my gosh, you were all wrong. And it's like, Windows Vista, you're an idiot. Buy our products. I'm like, who the heck is that going to convince?
That's great.
You're an idiot. So like they pour.
Oh my God!
So
They
like
didn't
they
say
poured
that, but
you
that's
a
what it
cool
means. That's the meaning. It doesn't say that. It just
Go on,
that's,
Ben.
that's
Yeah.
the
Like
meaning
they
of it.
poured two.
Yeah.
They poured two tall, cool, refreshing glasses of Windows Cola, and you drank one of each, and then they asked you which one tasted better, and they said, "Oh, this one.
Yeah.
I mean,
This
that
cola is Mojave."
that is like a proven fact though. Like people have certain biases. There's a great episode of Penn and Teller's Bullshit where they're talking about bottled water. And they go to a fancy restaurant,
Ooh.
and they have this guy be like the water steward, and he like brings out all these different samples of bottled water and like boxy bottles and circular bottles and all these fancy bottles, and like he tells them, oh, this is from the mountains of the Himalayas, this is from such and such, this is from such and such. They drink it, and it's like, oh, that's got sort of a metallic aftertaste. Ooh, that's kind of minty, you know. They're like making all these comments, and then they just they take them around to the back where they've got Teller's just there with a garden hose pouring water into all these fucking bottles.
They did that with food too. They brought these guys
Fantastic.
into a restaurant, and they started serving them like Taco Bell and like Walmart 99-cent shit. And the
Yeah,
same
no, that
guy
was
came out and
brilliant.
would like try and make it look all fancy, and then tell them it was like this really expensive shit. and they're all like, "This is fantastic."
And you know,
Presentation
yeah, go on, Ben.
matters a lot.
That reminds me.
True.
That reminds me of the one issue in Biggest Problem in the Universe. Most of the time I agreed with Dick, but the one thing that I was totally on Maddox's side about was his thing about expensive steak.
And
Expensive steak. Like, Dick Masterson swears that like paying like $60 for a steak is like
I remember that.
It's just not comparable to whatever, or like $100 for a steak.
Well, you know, Maddox
he
kind of conceded.
He swears that there's some real tangible difference
There-
when
Yeah.
you buy a really expensive steak.
There is. I mean, like, I've been wined and dined at fancy restaurants as a member of the press, and believe me when I say that a really succulent cut of steak that's prepared well is a lot better than what you're going to get.
Well, hang on.
But
How
there's
much
gotta
of
be
that
an
is in
upper
the
limit,
prepared
right?
part? You know, how much of that comes into the preparation and the presentation and the tenderizing and all that stuff?
I
you know?
like
There's
50%, but I mean, again, that's what you're paying for at a fancy restaurant is a chef who
there's
knows how to do
only-
that well, in addition to
sure.
great
Well, okay.
ingredients.
But there's only so good a steak can be.
That's-
right. There's
Yeah,
got to be
guys,
some
didn't you
point
ever-
at
Oh!
which paying more for a steak can no longer.
Oh yeah,
I agree.
I'm just saying. I went to the House of Prime Rib in San Francisco, which is like an $80 a plate restaurant where they only serve prime rib, and I fucking came in my pants. I came in my pants in front of business people. I came
in front of God, Jesus, and the bear, he came in his
I
pants.
That
came
reminds
in
me-
my pants.
there-
It was delicious. It's one of the.
That reminds me of an incredible drill tweet from like a week ago where he says
Yeah.
a pamphlet labeled MRA shit comes tumbling out of my pocket during my weekly Wild Wings JO session, costing me the Yo Play deal.
Drill's a legend, man. Shout out to Drill.
I fucking love drill so much. Holy shit. We're way off topic.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah, we've
Yeah,
gotten
well, you know, I was gonna
drastically
say
off topic.
we can kind
Yeah.
of bring the idea here back to our witty banter topic, which was in fact our topic. In that it's
JO session.
it's not about, you can't just dress up fancy shit. Like, no matter how good or how much action is going on in your movie.
Nice silky smooth segue.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
quite
Thank you,
good. It
thank
was
you.
quite-
No matter how many billions you spent on making your scene look professional, like in all your Avengers shit, it's not going to make a lick of difference. It's not going to impress people who actually care about good dialogue and good characters.
Let
Let
me dial back to a specific example. This was the
Okay.
thing that I think I was thinking of when I suggested this topic, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
webcomic that I don't hate it, but I definitely don't like it either.
Well, I mean,
And
you
it's called-
you hate it because it's not yours. And it's
Sure.
taken away from your market share.
That's true.
That's absolutely true. But all right, so it's called Dumbing of Age, and it's like a daily. Yeah. Okay. I guess you got an opinion. It's like a daily. It's a daily gag strip, but it also tells like a semi-serious, dramatic story about a bunch of like college freshmen fucking around. I don't know. It's fine and all, but I really think that the structure of it takes away from it because it's a dramatic story, but it's told as these daily gags, and so every like. Not everyone, but like most of the beats have to end with the joke.
Yeah.
So like these characters' dramatic lives are just punctuated by an endless series of like goofy gags and like snarky
one-liners.
comebacks.
Ugh,
yes,
God.
and one-liners.
Yeah.
Here's I'm looking at one right now where the you know the religious girl is talking to her gay friend and she's just had her boyfriend because he's dating her as a beard, whatever, and she's realized that she can't keep doing this to him, and she's like, no, we've got to stop this, and she says, it's not right for us to be together. You gotta go back where you belong now with your own kind. Get out of here. I don't need you anymore. And then the boyfriend like kind of does like a snarky expression and goes, is that from Harry and the Hendersons? Turns out this dramatic scene is being like undercut by some goofy old like movie reference where he's gotta like let his pet dog go into the wild or something.
Yeah, no.
And I don't like it when this happens. I think it is a disservice.
I'm pretty sure that they toss a gag into that within like 2 comics of the scene where one of the characters almost gets raped.
Lol.
They do. They have all these and like a character will say something snarky and like nasty at the end of a panel, but it doesn't necessarily disrupt the story. Like you would expect someone to like have some reaction or response, but usually the next strip just starts up without any like
this guy,
mention of it.
This guy
Not all
also,
the time, but a lot of the time.
This guy also does that fucking Tumblr thing where every single character he disagrees with is painted as basically Satan.
There's some of that. There's some of that.
I've been keeping up with it. I don't know why. I just, you know how you get into a habit of checking back with a webcomic after a while, and you just do it instinctually. I've been keeping.
I mean, when you've read so much of it, you can't stop reading.
There's like this character now who's like hyper religious, and she's trying to run the fucking the trans girl who lives in their dorm out of the dorm. By blackmailing the super, which of course involves a lot of stupid like Mickey Mouse gags and shit. Like she's like this evil, like she's the religious stand-in compared to the other character who it's like Joyce, who's it's heavily implied is Joyce. Completely losing all of her faith in God because her best friend's gay, and it's
her arc, right? Her arc is she's losing her faith and becoming a better person as a result
because she's not religious anymore, and it's like I'm it's so heavy-handed, and I mean part of the problem is that this comic is from the guy who wrote Short Pact.
And he does a lot.
Like
he's very prolific. I admire that.
He's very prolific, but all of his comics involve the same characters in different sort of situations because he's never come up with a new character in like 15 fucking years.
It's weird.
And
it's weird. It's like the same characters later after they've gotten married and had a kid or whatever.
Yeah, and he's like his dialogue isn't even good.
It's not. It's not. But he's really trying to be clever and get off gags. But he makes like, okay, there was one I just read where like a girl like at a social, she's at church and she like tears off her dress and she goes, "Was that a tearaway dress?" And she replies, "Is a tear what you say?" That's a Simpsons joke. That is just a straight up fucking ripped off from Homer Simpson.
Yo, I'm looking at that comic right now, Ben, and it's pretty hot. That's all I've got to say about it.
The other thing
he draws porn. He draws porn.
Oh, really?
He draws
his own characters.
He canonically draws porn scene like.
Well,
in
so does the greatest
itself,
comic artist of all time, Christian Wester Chandler, but we don't hold that against him. Do it.
But this is bad porn. This is stuff
in the comic itself. Like characters will hook up and it'll skip to the next day, but he'll go and actually draw the sex scene and post it on Slipshine.
You can go to slipshine.com and buy that comic right now. And
things are going to get slippery and shiny.
The best thing about those, the best thing about those comics is when fucking 4chan gets a hold of them and edits them together.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh my god.
You see, that's where the magic comes in.
I don't want to get into a whole thing about this, but I have really strong but conflicted feelings about creators like that who draw porn of their own creations like that. I really it really ties me up in knots, and not in like a sense that I necessarily hate it, but I really
we know you would.
I really feel weird about it.
So hey, you guys,
is that so?
web comics. Do you know web comics?
But I also feel bad for feeling weird about it. Like I don't know
web
if
comics.
Web comics.
Go on,
I know
what's up?
A web comic that does not have snarky, witty dialogue is Cucumber Quest, the only web comic I've ever read. And it's still going. And all the characters, except for the main character.
That's cool.
All the characters are like kind of dumb or like not self-aware or like really impulsive and irrational in hilarious ways. And so the main character sort of plays the straight man to all of them, but he's not that strong-willed, so he just sort of gets swept away by all of them, but he's always trying to like be like, "Wait, come on, that's a totally stupid decision. No." And it's hilarious. It very much is relatable.
The titular cucumber.
Yes, it's very relatable to any situation you've been in your life where you felt like everyone was making a stupid decision and no one was listening to you. But hey, it goes deeper than that, because as the show is as the series has been going on, it's been starting to come into focus. It's starting to be clear that all the impulsive actions of all the characters turns out to be accidentally or unintentionally more along the lines of what you actually. The point is, he's not all right. It turns out that the actions that everyone has been taking has a lot more logic behind it than it may seem at first, and it's a nice balance of Oh man, I was trying to say that I was trying to get this point in for like 20 minutes, and the longer it sits in my mind, the more inarticulate it gets. My dialogue is
get it
not
out.
witty at all. So it's I think what the show is, what the comic is alluding to, is that the rational thinking of the main character in combination with the more impulsive actions of all the other characters
Dude,
put
you're
together.
cutting out like crazy
Uh-huh.
right now.
Well,
You're like
whatever.
on the
and
moon or
podcast
something.
listeners are going to be able to hear.
Yeah,
it
go on.
In the
correctly,
podcast,
Okay.
I'll be able to hear him.
Okay.
Right. So it seems like it's going to be the rational thinking of the main character in tandem with the more impulsive thinking of all the other characters is going to lead the story to a successful
right.
conclusion. And that's the kind of more humble writing
Okay.
that I'm a fan of. Like in the Lego movie, where it has all of these creative characters, the ones who can just build anything against the instructions. And at first you're like, oh, these are obviously the savants. They're the only people who can break the system and be cool and awesome. And obviously all the people writing the movie and making the movie are all fancy themselves as the creative types, but toward the end it starts to suggest that just being a wild creative person isn't very good. You got to be more rational than that, and so the movie shows you got to have both types. It's a writer sitting down writing a story about how they're not the answer and the solution to everyone's problems. Isn't that interesting? Now that is wit,
That's pretty
if I
cool.
do say so myself.
Wait, what movie was that?
Lego movie.
The Lego movie?
Oh,
Yeah.
the Lego movie. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Well, yeah, go
on-
on, Ben.
Okay. Well, first let me just make a side note that Control Alt Delete is the ultimate webcomic full of snarky dialogue and too clever by half bullshit.
You know,
Oh, by the
one-
way,
Yeah.
is also the sound of that face that they all make.
That's true. That's totally true.
The B carrot U face. Yeah.
The only one that I feel is a little bit more of a shame is XKCD, which is inundated with clever bullshit that I hate, and kind of ruins. I can't read it much anymore. even though
Sometimes,
you know,
XK
sometimes the tone of XKCD is really off-putting, but sometimes it's legitimately clever. I don't
It
know.
lacks good punchlines. Like, it can be a really clever comic, but like I
love like the math stuff and shit.
I much prefer
Yeah.
Saturday morning breakfast cereal and
Oh God, I hate Saturday morning breakfast cereal. I cannot stand
Oh,
it
that's-
at all.
that's a fight for another day.
I know I'm in the minority.
That's a
there.
fight for another day. And I really liked
Yeah.
I really liked Amazing Superpowers and Gun Show before they stopped doing things.
Gun Show was
what-
great. But anyway,
what was
Ben,
I-
go
what-
on.
What was I talking about before you mentioned? XKCD. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
XKCD can be funny, but like I don't think the dialogue is ever funny. Like I don't think the dialogue itself is ever like clever in a good way. Like
I agree. The dialogue is never amazing.
Yeah, even
like,
though
it's got
tries to
really-
be very snarky sometimes.
It it can be annoying.
I'm reading.
I'd rather him
looking
stick
at
to
some
his
of
forte
Control Alt
of
Delete, and I'm immediately remembering why I don't read like any web comics. It's because like you run out of jokes immediately. I tried to do a web comic
Yeah,
back when I was 16. I was going to do it like twice a
Sure.
week. I ran out of jokes in a week and a half, and I gave up, like all web comic artists should.
Yeah,
Just resort to random violence.
I tried two
Yeah.
webcomics back in the day, but those more fell apart because art is hard and finding artists to do shit for you is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
I wrote some good dialogue. I'm just gonna say I wrote some pretty good dialogue.
Okay.
Oh sure,
Great.
maybe. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, statistically,
could be,
someone
could
had
be.
to
So,
out there.
I actually write like a lot of stuff, right? So I've got strong opinions on the flip side of this, which is a whole bunch of people complain whenever characters are witty in anything, and they're like, "Oh, that's not realistic." And what they seem to want is
Well,
what
if-
we're doing now, the back and forth where everybody's stumbling over their words and sounding like idiots. And that's
If let me defend that position, because if characters are so clever and so witty and have such great good liners that it's unrealistic and strains credulity, I think that's bad.
I think that's bad
That-
too.
Yeah,
but I
witty,
think that
witty
pure
dialogue
realism-
in
and
real
that
life.
I think that
in-
can be a legitimate criticism.
Right. Well,
I
because
think
in real life battles, real life death-defying situations can sometimes have witty dialogue. There was some sergeant or whoever who said, "All right, men. There's two types
sure.
of men on this battlefield: those who are dead and those who are going to be. Move out." And that was spoken on Normandy as it was going on.
Yeah.
Good, funny line.
Yeah.
I bet a couple of them got a
Lol.
good chuckle right before they got shot. You know,
Right before
so,
they
yeah,
caught a
it
bullet to
totally
the
can be
neck.
realistic.
I don't think that realism is really ever the goal in creating like a work of fiction. The goal is verisimilitude. The goal is believability, not realism. And
Yeah.
there's like to an extent, yeah, if they're too witty that takes away from it. But to the same extent, if people are stumbling over their words and using lots of filler words, that sounds awkward. That's not something people want to watch, and that sounds fake in its own way. Like a real conversation,
like-
not improvised. Like somebody who took all of this dialogue and made people, like all of what we're saying right now, somebody who took that and made somebody rehearse it and deliver it, that would sound more fake than if they cut out all of the fluff bits and only hit the salient points and didn't have us dancing around the same points over and over again and just had us get to what we wanted to say.
On the subject of like you said, not going for realism necessarily, but going for believability, I agree with that, and I like that. And I think that Tyrion in Game of Thrones is a really great example. Like his comebacks and stuff are maybe unrealistically good sometimes, but it's okay when he does it because everyone else because he's all the times he does stuff like that establish him as being generally smarter than the people around him. So when he is making one-liners and being like too clever by half, it's kind of okay because you know that he is this like larger than life, smarter than the people around him dude. So even though it's not necessarily realistic when he does it, it works. That's what I have to say about that.
I was just reading some of these SMBC comics and noticing.
Oh my god! All right, I won't.
Yeah.
The thing about SMBC is that it's like all the same. It all feels like the same joke. It's
That's
all
true.
It's all some like it's some science fiction or like economic or scientific.
Economic was a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
His
socio concept, and then he just kind of presents it and has a kid be like, "But Dad, why don't we just?" economic thing, and the dad is like, no, son, because, other economic thing taken to its logical extreme.
That's
in a
exactly the
hilarious
one I
way.
just read.
They're all like that.
Well, since he became a dad, that's certainly more and more true. Like
My issue is not that it's all about dads and their kids. It's just that they all have the same like cadence.
There's a lot of like wish fulfillment stuff for him though. That's like, here's how I'd fuck with my kid. If this situation came up.
Oh yeah, every father just wants to fuck his kid. I'm with you, brother.
That's not what he said. Fuck.
God damn it.
On the subject of witty banter and someone getting off one-liners, I heard like a brief snippet of an interview with Stephen Fry the other day, and someone asked him about the differences between British comedy and American comedy.
Ooh, cool.
And what he said was interesting, and I'm gonna try and remember it, and I hope I don't completely butcher it. I don't think I remember it exactly, but I'll try. And he said like American comedy is very focused on like the comedian is like the hero, and the comedian is smarter than everyone else, and like kind of shows them up for the fools that they are, whereas the British comedian is the fool, and like life just shits on him.
How interesting that is.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try the example. I think the example he gave was like if some like one is playing a guitar badly, an American comic might come and like smash the guitar, and everyone would go, "Ha ha, that's what I wanted to do." Like he says what we're all thinking or whatever. Whereas like the British comedian would be the guitar player who gets his guitar smashed by some dick. Yes. So there's a thing. I guess maybe the witty banter that irks me so much is kind of an American thing, or like an America-centric thing or something. Could be.
It does feel that way now that you mention it.
Did someone just leave?
Davu did.
Davu died.
His audio is fucking up, so he's
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, well, I guess that's... Is it as good a time as any to end?
Probably.
We've only been going for like 50 minutes, but
I mean,
I'm pretty
Whatever.
I
comfortable
will
with that.
say
Yeah.
before we close
I
out
think
that
we've-
despite all of that,
Yeah.
everything that we just said, there are times
Yeah.
when I enjoy endless witty banter as a guilty pleasure. Sometimes,
why don't you give some examples of witty banter done?
you know,
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
If you get
I
like
don't
I've
that.
been
even know.
complaining about the concept a lot, although I acknowledge that it can be done well.
Well, how about like
sometimes.
anything? I mean, in the Avengers movies, if you like those.
I fucking
or,
love the entire MCU.
I don't know.
I like Joss Whedon's
Yeah,
writing.
the
Okay,
Avengers.
okay.
The Avengers is fun.
That's the whole thing. It's
dumb,
like
but fun.
it's like I can recognize that it's stupid, but in the moment, it's just like, haha, I like it.
Because like people, I'm not a big fan. I
Yeah.
haven't seen any of the Avengers movies, but I imagine people don't really watch them for like intense character development or
not
stuff
not
like that.
not.
I don't know. Maybe.
No, but
No,
they
but-
watch. They watch the side movies for that. They watch the Avengers
Mm-hmm.
for the big third act climax to every single other movie in the
Yeah.
entire franchise. Like that's
Sure.
that's what the crossover movies are. So there's no character development in those. There can't be. There's
And
no
it may
room
still
for
be
it.
guilty of this. It may still be guilty of just making all the characters witty for the sake of it. But nobody seems to really give a shit. So at the end of the day, what really matters is if people are enjoying themselves. I mean, in a monetary sense. So fuck it.
Wait, enjoying themselves in a monetary
No,
sense?
they're enjoying themselves, and like the people enjoy the movie, so they're willing to go see it, and they don't care if the characters are consistent or any of that, whatever.
I mean, I think that truly witty, not quote unquote witty banter or dialogue or whatever, can only happen when it's occurring in a way that's consistent with like strong character development and
I agree.
characterization and stuff. And if like a witty line that's just in there to be witty and doesn't serve the purpose of the narrative or the character or whatever is bad. It doesn't matter how witty it is. It's bad and it shouldn't be there if it doesn't mesh with everything else that should be going on in the scene.
Yeah, like something like where Sheldon walks up to Penny's door and goes, knock, 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 Penny, knock, 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 Penny, knock, 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 Penny. She opens the door and she is a penny. That's witty dialogue.
What the fuck are you talking about?
That's real wit. That's the kind of thing I want to see. All right, anyone have anything else, or shall we end it now?
I think that's.
Let's end it now.
I guess I'm done.
Too.
Okay, everybody, thanks for watching. We'll be back next week. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you later. Bye. Yeah.
I'm supposed to be working right now. I'm supposed to be working right now. But I'm not working. I'm doing nothing. My dick I'm jerking. Myself I'm sucking. I am an asshole. I am a stupid. I've got a deadline. Don't wanna do it. What the hell is wrong with me? I'm supposed to be making money. I'm supposed to be creating funny things that the people gladly will pay for. Artistic genius, that's what they came for. Instead, I'm tweeting, hashtag repeating. That's why there's no heat and holes in the ceiling. Yeah, it's quite the burden. It's a hard knock life, being a genius.